Well, this is Worldview. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. I'm Yvonne Katsande. Things are certainly warming up over this COVID scam, especially for these two lying doctors. Look at this picture. The same people who pushed for the COVID lockdowns and vaccine mandates are now arguing against having an open debate on vaccines. And I find that very interesting. These people aren't here to spread the truth, but of course, to spread propaganda for the regime. How do you explain how every person known to be infected with a COVID-19 after attending a health conference in Germany was vaccinated? Can I show you those two pictures again? Dr. Fauci and Dr. Hortes. Very popular doctors. These were the mouthpieces of spreading the lies of COVID-19. Now we are in the era of truth. And we say, do you care that we debate about this? Or maybe let us ask you some relevant questions. And guess what? They don't even want to hear about it. But you see, talking about these people that attended this conference in Germany, that's just one example. All people who reported testing for these COVID vaccines, positive for COVID-19, said they had received at least 2 doses of a COVID-19 vaccine. That means that a person's vaccination status was not associated with the SARS-CoV-2 infection, and that is during this Congress. On the other hand, prior infection was significantly associated with testing negative and staying in private accommodation versus a hotel was associated with a higher infection rate. In another COVID scam, what broke the NHS was turning it into a COVID-only service. A policy which was supported by almost all MPs, political parties, and media outlets. Everybody was singing the same story. COVID, COVID, COVID. Now, they all try to make political capital from the said breakage. Well, I guess we can say that COVID was when the majority of people finally realized that the elite can buy science just as easily as they can buy politicians. Having said that, can someone tell me what exactly is Bill Gates or was Bill Gates doing in China? So President Xi Jinping called Bill Gates an old friend and said he hoped they could carry out activities together beneficial to both China and the United States. And in the Chinese president's first meeting with a foreign entrepreneur, in years that is. Now that doesn't sound well, especially after China played around with viruses and spread COVID. Now Bill Gates is giving them another $50 million check to play around with malaria in Africa, that is. And China's just using Gates' money to strengthen its hold on African resources. Now, to mandate mRNA vaccines, the public was deceived by scientific and political authorities who falsely claimed that the vaccines will stop infection, they would block transmission and effectively end the spread of the COVID-19. This led to a decline in public trust in vaccines, as dissenting voices were suppressed through censorship and established expectations were consistently shifted. So let's go back to Dr. Peter Hortes. I showed you his picture right at the beginning. A critic of congressional investigations into the gain-of-function research. And a co-funded in 2017 research paper with Dr. Shi Zhengli of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which involved creating a recombinant SARS coronavirus. Now, Hortes decried the hearings as nothing less than a plan to undermine the fabric of science in America. Hortes also dismissed as an outlandish conspiracy the possibility that a lab accident actually sparked the COVID-19 pandemic. However, Hortes' own 2012 to 2017 NIH grant for the development of the SARS vaccine had the stated aim of responding to any accidental release from a laboratory, in addition to a possible zoonotic spillover of the virus. So the $6.1 million NIH grant also raises the possibility of deliberate spreading of the virus by a bioterrorist attack. That cannot be denied. Dr. Robert Malone highlights Dr. Peter Hortes' role in funding coronavirus gain-of-function research at this Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, his ties to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and his advocacy for censoring opposing scientific views. Have a listen to this.
The fact that Peter was involved in the gain-of-function research, going back to Obama's determination that that should not be done. I'm talking about the gain-of-function research specifically with the coronavirus. So Peter was absolutely involved in the gain of function research that we usually think of as centered around North Carolina. And Peter was clearly actively involved in trying to suppress any questions about that gain of function research, in promoting the alternative storylines that now appear to be a propaganda campaign that may have been mounted by the intelligence community to deflect attention from the apparent role of EcoHealth Alliance, Ralph Barrick, and Peter Hotez and others in engineering a biowarfare pathogen that ended up intentionally or unintentionally released in Wuhan, whether it escaped from the lab or it was seeded. There's no way to know. So Peter's fingerprints are all over this. And then, of course, he developed a vaccine which was pushed through Indian channels, including the Serum Institute, through a partnership, which is a more traditional SARS-CoV-2 vaccine that was deployed, I believe, in India and was fast-tracked. Peter does have a deep, long-standing relationship with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, including large sums of money of funding for Dr. Hotez's work. So Dr. Hotez then, during this outbreak, launched the initiative and then published a paper attempting to link those that were speaking, let's say, in opposition to the approved narrative, in his words, misinformation spreaders or anti-vaxxers. Those are clearly weaponized pejoratives, but that's his language. I would say he was speaking out against those that were speaking an alternative narrative to the one that he was advancing in CNN and many press interviews throughout the COVID crisis. And he wrote a paper and then did quite a bit of advocacy, and now has written a book in which, among other things, he's asserting that those that are anti-vaxxers or vaccine misinformation spreaders or whatever are anti-Semitic. And now he seems, in this recent volley of exchanges, I haven't read them all, but he seems to be equating those that are speaking differently from his point of view on these COVID vaccines. He seems to be calling them fascists or other pejoratives having to do with and characterizing them as of the right wing, which I object to. So there's the background on Peter Hotez. He's a odd, a smaller man, always been very energetic, very quick to accuse others of things, and very, very intentionally politically active and actively seeking to raise his own profile, in contrast to my position, which is I've been speaking out because I felt it was a necessity, not because I wished to become the next CNN star. Or a director of NIAID. I've expressly said I have no political intention. So then we come to this situation of his, I think in retrospect, unfortunate for him, interview with Joe Rogan, in which he was again trying to advance the logic that the approved narrative was the correct one, and that anybody that was saying anything otherwise was in some way deficient, misinformation spreader. And Joe confronted him on his own management of himself